everyone, welcome. We all know I'm fantastic with technology and we've just had a slow start to this, but welcome to Embody Your Empress. I'm Sarah King. Today we have the amazing Jo Goddard on today. You can see we are embodying our empresses. We have our crowns on and we are about to get juicy. Jo is the founder, the creator, the CEO of I'm Her, and as the name suggests, it's all things to do with connecting to your inner self. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about pleasure, intimacy, and how we can be our best selves with that within relationship, within singleness, and as a busy woman. So, Jo, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, gosh, that's a big question. Yes, I do. So where should we start? Yes, I have the absolute pleasure of holding space for women 35 and over, kind of roughly where I sit personally and where I work. So every woman that gravitates towards me is a woman seeking support in remembering, because there's nothing new to cultivate. It's just a remembrance of what it's like to be someone who puts pleasure back on their priority list and kind of do a flip. So with I'm Her, it actually stands for indulge, move, heal, embody, rise. And those were the 5 pivotal pillars where I realized, how have I actually been supporting myself to come back into my own pleasure? And yes, a huge part of my work is around sensuality and sexuality. But what that actually really is a microcosm of reflecting what's happening in our macro, in our relationships, in our environments, our spaces, our families, all those other dynamics we play in. So when we plug ourselves back into pleasure, it's also about plugging it back into all areas of our life as well, and saying yes to more things that just feel indulgent and moving in ways that are actually about flow and feeling good and prioritizing healing, just noticing and accepting and acknowledging and finding all the ways in which to really put ourselves back as the empress in our own world. And what I've found really interesting is you don't have to give up the roles that you play in. You don't have to give up the ways you love to show up for your family and your friends, and you don't have to, stop being multi-passionate. You just have to change where you're placing your identity. So instead of somebody who is a mother, who is a partner, who has all these lists of responsibilities, what I am is me. I'm so fully and completely me. And all those things that I do are where I show up to express who I am and show how pleasure moves through me and cultivate more joy in my life. So I'm still doing the same things. I'm just flipping it and going, you know what? Me first in those spaces, instead of those spaces cramping things up and me forgetting who and what I am. So it's
I love that. I love that. The first thing that comes to mind, Jo, if you don't mind me jumping in, what about the woman who are just sitting there going, yeah, but what if I feel guilty for putting me first?
Yeah, you're gonna, right? Everything that you've known and everything that you desire to grow into, it's gonna feel different and uncertain, and you might feel guilt, you might feel inner judgment, you might create some victim story, you might notice all the ways in which people are telling you shouldn't, you couldn't, because it's modifying how they see you in their own world. So whenever we do want to cultivate change, be prepared for the bullshit stories, for the stinking thinking. Like, it's gonna happen. I'm not going to give you a silver platter and go, it's all right. If you just, do these rituals, you'll be okay. Love and light. No, you're human.
Love it.
So prepare to feel guilty.
Just fucking do it, right?
A huge moment for me in my journey. So I've been on a big life journey, and Sarah, you and I have kind of mirrored each other in some of those moments in the season. So for me, the huge permission piece landed when unexpectedly I had the reawakening to who I was as a woman. I'd actually felt like prior to this moment, I'd been girl, maiden, and then I'd been pulled into mother, but I was mothering from the wounds of my girl and my maiden. I was mothering, and I was in a marriage, which was an extension of what I didn't want to do because my parents did things wrong and I want to do it better. So all my wounding from my childhood or my teens was the foundation for how I was parenting and how I was in my marriage. And then I just had this moment, and I mean, there's a whole story in that moment, but this moment arrived where I was given an opportunity to remember who I was as a woman, not as a mother, not as a wife, not as a shoulda, woulda, coulda, whatever, just as who I am. And as soon as that remembrance landed in my body, I was like, okay, I'm not going another 35 years disconnected from this version of myself. And so I drew that metaphorical line in the sand and went, all right, I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unwitness what I've witnessed. And I'm leaning forward. And the discomfort of the unknown, it's still uncomfortable, but it no longer outweighs the discomfort of staying stuck. And so you got to move forward. You got to move forward knowing that, yeah, you don't yet have the information and the knowledge and the embodiment of the next season, but you got to go and seek that information. You got to go curiously forward and go, yeah, there's going to be some heavy stuff. I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to feel wobbly. I'm going to feel uncertain. I'm okay. I've done so many bumpy things in my life until this time. I've actually got a lot of evidence that I can get through the hard shit. So I can lean forward and I can trust and I can, you know, it's almost like you got to walk hand in hand with your nervous system and go, all right, I've got you. Yes, it's going to feel a bit wobbly. I've got you. I've got you. I got you. And you walk in harmony with yourself. You become your own best friend because it's like, well, we're on this journey together. Let's go.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm literally getting tingles in my hands because I'm just like, I can feel everything that you're saying. For that woman who is feeling right now, she's feeling disconnected. She knows there's that niggle coming in, like, hello, like what's the best place for her to start?
Gosh, because you're asking the big questions, right? There's no like one right place.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for this.
There is a real medicine in that niggle, in that curiosity. And I guess my question is, well, why not? But what if, right? When you're already in the known. If each day you're waking up and it's the same as the day before and you already kind of know then what tomorrow's going to be like and feel like, you know this, right? So if I want something different, I have to make the different a known thing. So what can I do? Just one thing I can do today that just moves the pendulum towards the realm of possibility, right? And it's not like when you get to play in this place, it's like a dance, right? You don't actually have to give up anything that you already have in place. You don't have to jump 100 steps ahead. You're just like, is there a way that I can have my known, but also just expand a little bit over here? And then you go over into this new little place and you have a little play and you're like, I now have more information. I can now make the next decision, because indecision is a lack of knowing, right? Uncertainty is a lack of certainty. So you don't have to know the big picture. You just got to go on the curious quest of going, well, I don't have the information, so I actually can't say yes or no. I'm just going to go gather some information.
Oh, I love that. Being open to the possibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
And where I'm sitting now, like, I know that you know my story, but the listeners don't. But I'm sitting as a woman who has, in the last 2 years, left a marriage. I'm co-parenting 3 beautiful children. I found myself in another amazing relationship, And none of that was planned. When I drew my line in the sand and went, something needs to change, and I didn't know what, I let that thread of curiosity lead me. When my then husband was, coming into conversations with me about what I was noticing and acknowledging together that, yes, we both felt this need for something to shift and a renewed energy to come into the marriage, he asked me, like, is what you're asking for and what you're wanting just you trying to go through a slow breakup? And in that moment, my truth was no. I'm not looking to break up. My truth was I'm looking to pull back the fragments of self. That was my only truth. And then as I kept doing that, I landed in this full knowing of, actually, I need to close this chapter. But you don't know that. And we get scared that, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Go away.
Guys, it's so popular. We're serving
it's still, can you hear that beeping coming through the phone? Okay,
no,
good. I'll ignore it. Somebody wants me, they can have me later. But that's the thing, right? We stay stuck because we lean into the what if, as if like, oh, what if everything I have falls away and I don't have anything in its place? And the reality is nothing falls away without something else in its place. Like, you don't just lose everything and become a shell of energy with nothing. Like, you'll go through another season and you might have a shift in the relationship dynamics and a shift in the space and your environment and what that looks like. And it could be really hard, or it could be really amazing and you're just waking up every day celebrating. None of that can be guaranteed, other than the only way to unstick is to move. The only way to solve uncertainty is to go and gather some information. The only way to know what you desire. And this is the reality of pleasure, right? My work, yes, I play in the spaces of tantric touch and yoni massage and all this body work and yummy juiciness. But the reality and the lived experience of that is you have to keep leaning into curiosity. You keep having to lean in and expand into what's possible here. And I can't give an answer really beyond that, except you actually have a lot of evidence that you've already navigated hard stuff in your life. Sometimes it's come without you having any say. It's just arrived at your doorstep. And you have already gathered so much evidence that you can make it through the hard shit. Lean into that evidence and then just make it a conscious choice of playing in curiosity, playing in possibility, and expanding your capacity to hold yourself in those uncertainties. It's a really cool place to be, like in the unknown. And how can I describe it? So when my marriage was coming into this season of, all right, I'm starting to really feel like this chapter needs to close, we were in an open marriage. So one of the ways that we had decided to renew some energy and for us both to figure out what we want was to stay as a support for each other, but open our marriage. And so I was in the dynamic of one chapter closing and the messiness and the clunkiness and the ways things had been intertwined because we'd been together for 18, 19 years, while also exploring my sense of self and expanding myself as this sensual feminine being and really loving that and meeting men at that version of myself. I actually had so much spaciousness within me to be in both those places at the same time. And yes, I've been in the personal development, spiritual development world for quite a few years now. So I had an abundance of tools. So whatever you can do to grow your capacity to hold yourself, you've actually got an incredible ability to be in two kind of dynamics at the same time, or multiple, if that's how it plays out for you. But like breath and movement and stillness and slowing everything down so you can just keep hearing that inner wisdom the whole way through. You can do it, right? You can do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful, I love the message, like to honor yourself. Like when you are hearing that voice going, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, rather than shutting it out, going, no, I'm putting myself in this box. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing to call in actually who you are. Like you say, remember who you are and actually do the things that light you up, that bring you the joy.
Yeah.
And it will just flow out into all areas. I
Yes.
love that when you tapped into that for yourself, that flowed out into relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a changing dynamic for you, that's how it was, and that's what you were calling in. If we had a woman who is not really sure, like, how to step into that version of her when there are other people involved, maybe she's on that line of her confidence isn't quite there. She's playing with it still. She's doing that lean in, but it's just like on the edge of the cliff. Do you have any tips that can help her step fully in?
Well, I suppose I can take myself back to that time in my life, um, and this is even before my then husband and I were talking about shifting, and I just wanted to stay committed to pleasure leading me home to myself. And I had a daily mantra where my mantra was every day I deserve pleasure. And my ritual around that was when I had my shower before bed, I did a check in.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through my day purely to notice where in my day I could identify that, yes, in fact, I had received pleasure. And if in that moment I couldn't identify, I stayed in that shower until I dropped into the pleasure of the shower. And I would actually dance, and I'd have these little, I was like, all right, the shower is my pleasure tool right now. The shower is dancing with me. How can each droplet be something that I'm moving around? And I did a lot of movement and somatic processes just in the shower intuitively. But every single day when I put my head down on the pillow, I knew that I had received pleasure that day. And what this did, so if we think about, the neural pathways, right? If we see self-worth as a neural pathways or a series of neural pathways in the brain, self-worth neural pathways are kind of scattered, and they're plugged into roles and responsibilities, and they're plugged into the external elements of our life. I was showing up every day going, I deserve pleasure, which is I am worthy of pleasure piece. Then I was moving through my days, and right at the beginning, I didn't know how to actively seek it out, but I knew how to do a check-in at the end of the day. So I
Mm-hmm.
simply got to the end of the day and went, all right, look for the evidence. You've said you're worthy of it. Look for the evidence. Just because I said it doesn't mean some divine being's going to go, yes, you are worthy. Let me sprinkle it all on you, right?
Some shimmery dust, here you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we get stuck in. We're like, I'm saying these words. Are you believing it? Like, is it true? Are you feeling it? But doing the check in, you're like literally matching up the
Yeah.
real life of it.
And if I couldn't identify or find the evidence, I created the evidence. And that's the piece that we forget, is that we create it. Manifestation is the aligned thought, belief, knowing, and the action. The action is so important. The body is your tool for action. So, any guess why I'm a body worker, right? Bodies are so powerful. Yes, get aligned. Know what it is you're calling in and where you want to move through, but you have to take action. No one is coming to make your life yours except for
Mm.
you. And so that was a really pivotal part of my journey. And because I started to create this neural pathway between I've claimed this and I'm actually noticing the evidence of it, all of a sudden I was now able to identify the moments of pleasure that happened in my day. And within a couple of weeks and a couple of months, I could identify endless opportunities for pleasure in my day. And I would give myself permission to deepen pleasure in each moment. And I call this pleasure stacking, right? So when I'm folding laundry, I'm folding laundry to the playlist that makes me shake my ass, right? When
Yeah.
I'm having my morning cup of tea, if the sun is outside, that sun is there for me and it's inviting me out there. And I'm going to go and get my whole body all warmed up and juicy for the day. Like, it layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of pleasure await you. You just have to decide you're worthy. You have to seek the evidence that it's played out. And if you can't find the evidence, that is not proof that you aren't worthy. That is proof you haven't taken action. So take the goddamn action.
Absolutely. And you're right. That's where we often get unstuck. We get to that point and we're just like, oh no, put it down, put it back on the table. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe that's not for me. But if we actually just took some action,
Yeah.
whatever that might be, imagine how different your day could look. I
Mm-hmm.
love the pleasure stacking. That sounds so fun. And I'm just literally trying to think of the things that I do. Because often, like what you're describing, you're like, oh, I do that, but I don't acknowledge it. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had a dance party this morning. I really enjoyed it. Did I acknowledge it? Only because I was super conscious of it, because I knew we were having this chat. Often that would probably slip by. I know for myself, like I'm a very kinetic person, like touch, texture, that is my intimacy. Like I like to surround myself with beautiful blankets,
Mm-hmm.
things that feel nice, the whole sensory experience, things that smell nice. And it took me a while to get to that point where that's really honoring myself. It's not just something I do, that was my foundation for intimacy and pleasure. And when I made that connection, like I could see it flow through all of my life, and especially my physical intimacy. When I have those things incorporated in that, it's like my mind
Yes.
explodes, literally.
Yeah.
So having that baseline, the awareness of it, just made such a difference to me.
Absolutely. Because, okay, if we come back again, like obviously when I said pleasure is all life encompassing, but let's keep it juicy. Like your libido is directly linked to your ability to notice and take action on pleasures in your day. Because the inside the word libido is the word I do. And you can't give consent until you know what you want. You can't lean into your desires until you know what you like. So you need to take action and you need to welcome more pleasure and you need to go, oh, that's a bit curious. What does that feel like? And go and do it or try it or test it out and build that piece of information. Build your I do, because that I do becomes the piece that, yes, you can hold it for yourself and you can go on these amazing journeys of self-honoring and self-pleasure separate to masturbation. They can absolutely include masturbation, but they become an honoring of self as an extension of your desires and how you have learnt to build a relationship with pleasure and how it moves through your life, how it moves through your body, how your spaces. And then you can empower your lovers, right? And when you know yourself at this, I won't say completely because I feel like we're always still learning and growing, but when you know yourself more, and you offer that to lovers, new or old, right?
Yes.
You offer them a new way to move into this kind of consensual exchange, because all of a sudden the giving and the receiving dynamic isn't what they can do for you. It's also about what you know about yourself and how you're inviting them to give it to you. You're no longer at the, oh, they like to do this or they don't like to do that. It's, you kind of go, oh, I can do this for myself. This is actually my benchmark. So everything you bring into my world is this or something better, right? And we transform the lover connection as well, because we did it for ourselves. It has to start with self.
Yes. That is such a gift in itself. Like when you have a lover that you can experience that with, like just the intimacy of being at that place. That is whole next level. That is when I got to that part of my journey, that's when I went from, oh, beautiful, beautiful love is only for the movies. I am living my movie. I am the director of my goddamn movie, and I know this script. So that was a really powerful point for me to. And I would invite any woman out there that is just like, who pulls back, like in any sort of pleasure intimacy setting, to like really listen back to that part of the conversation, even just on its own, and be like, this is a possibility. This is out there in the world. It is mine. Like, so deserving of it, so worthy of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing it, I guess when right at the beginning of our chat, you're like, what do you do for the women that might feel guilty or whatever? Like, same question. What do you do for the women who feel vulnerable and unable to voice their wants, needs, and desires? Well, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have to, if you actually want the change, right? And sometimes the truth of that is we're not actually ready for that. And that is okay. We are here having a human journey. We all ebb and flow through what we're ready for, what we have the capacity for. But when you are truly ready, you need to lean into vulnerability. You need to have those vulnerable conversations. You need to do what I did and turn to my partner of, back then 16, 17 years and say, hey, actually, there's a piece of me, of my journey, my story I haven't shared with you. I've been really nervous to share it with you. I don't want you to, I was nervous of his reaction. So I shared with him parts of my like younger teen self and my sexual activity, which he didn't know about. He just assumed I was the innocent good girl, right? And, the cliche, right? And I went on this journey and went, okay, I actually desire him to fully see me, all parts of my journey, because I'm learning to see it again myself. And I had to lean into that conversation, not knowing how he would react, knowing that I had my back enough that it didn't, I mean, it mattered, but it didn't matter. It wouldn't rock me and my constitution. Yes, I would have, emotional responses, and there might be, different things that activate, and the conversation might go in ways I can't even begin to predict. But I had enough of a constitution within myself to be like, you will be okay. And I shared it with him, and he did not take it well. Like, he slut shamed me so bad. It was a really big piece, right? But you have to go into those vulnerable places, because you owe it to yourself to keep not only knowing your truth, but standing in your truth, claiming your truth, letting it be seen, heard, and witnessed. Because your truth it's a magnet, and it pulls people towards you and situations and circumstances towards you that allow you to keep growing and expanding. When you realize that you've attracted something that's not actually the right fit, that pull away. Have you ever tried to pull like magnets away, especially if they've got a really tight attachment? They don't just go, oh, a bit of resistance. Okay, off we go. Like, they're like, it's this dynamic, right? They're still trying to pull together, and you have to keep standing strong and let the things that aren't serving you move away. But it's going to be, that's one thing I hate. I've been in the toxic positivity space of like, oh, just turn your positive, turn every thought into a positive. I've done it all. So you may be able to tell that I'm like, fuck that. It's going to get messy.
It is.
Lean
Because
in.
like you said, we're humans. We're having the human experience. And part of that is the messy and the ugly and the comments that hurt and the things that want to shake us. And then the other part is standing in our truth and being like, I don't know what I need to do right now, or I do know, and I'm just stepping the way that feels good. No matter what happens, no matter the discomfort, no matter what is coming up.
Yeah.
I see it and I feel it, and that's okay. And I'm going to go with what I need to do.
Absolutely. And again, come back to the bedroom, come back to the juicy taboo conversations, come back to the conversations around consent, right?
I love the consent conversation. How sexy are they though? Like, consent is so sexy in my opinion.
Absolutely. I've been in situations where my body boundaries have been quite literally stripped away and taken from me. And the consent piece, like if you can't hear your truth, right? You can't truly offer your consent into spaces. You truly can't give voice to your maybes, right? Because if you're in a situation with a new lover, an old lover, or whatever, and there's something happening that doesn't feel like a strong yes, but you can't rationalize the no because this is my husband of 25 years, right? But it's not a strong yes. Anything that's not a strong yes, even if it's a maybe, it's not a yes. And you're compromising your own embodied consent to still go along with something. But if you have built a relationship with the icky, vulnerable space, you will have built a relationship with your ability to go, hang on, this actually doesn't feel quite right for me. You know, I hear what you want. I hear your desires. I'm not there. I feel like maybe what I need is a different form of touch or a different form of connection. Or, you know, I don't want to say no, never, but I need to say I'm not sure right now, and that to be okay, because no one taught us, and we never really learnt how to give voice to what we want as sensual sexual beings, and our partners weren't often taught to be like, you know, how to bring that consent piece in. And it's a huge body work. I just ran a couples workshop the other night where one partner was sitting down and the other partner was the giver. So the sitting person was the receiver, and they said, I want to receive touch here, here, and here, and I want you to use this tool and this, you know, this temperature dive. Like she spoke out exactly what she wanted, and the giver gave her what she wanted. So there was a very clear giving and receiving dynamic, right?
Okay.
She stayed exactly how she was, but she shifted then. I said, all right, now, instead of you receiving, you're giving. You are giving your body to your partner so that they can use the tools and the touch and the techniques to explore you as a way of them accessing the pleasure of seeing and witnessing you in being touched and held. So they didn't change. They're still in the chair and still in the standing, still being touched, still doing the touching, but we shifted the consent about why. Why, you know, she was being touched. Was she being touched because she wanted it? Or was she being touched because she offered herself over and the touch was actually something he wanted? So all of a sudden he's the receiver, even though he's doing the act of the giving of touch, right? This is the wheel of consent, and it's even so much more in depth than that. But we have to be able to know ourselves, know our I do's, know our desires, and be able to lean into those vulnerable conversations, because that's also where safety and trust is cultivated, right? You aren't going to give yourself over fully and completely and be in the exchange. Pleasure in a relationship is not a one-person thing. It's a dynamic. It's a duo. It's a yin and a yang, right? So you need to be able to really know yourself so you can bring yourself into the space. They need to do the same. And then you can start to play with these different dynamics of, well, what is moving through me? What am I actually consenting to? What am I actually asking for? It's the cliche example of my partner going, oh, I'd love you to give me head, and me doing it, versus me going, oh, I'd love to give you head because I feel so much pleasure in my body when I see you in the pleasure of your body. And it turns me the fuck on because I know I'm cultivating that within you, versus just appeasing his I want head, right? It's the same process and action, but it's a very, very different energy and tension.
hugely different. You're a mind reader, because that was literally the image I had in my head. The very cliche moments, but then the turn when you are that person that really wants to go and bring out the pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Jo, this is the best conversation. We're going to have to wrap it up there for today, but I'd love to come back another time and do a part two.
Absolutely.
Yes, and have you back with our crowns. Now, how can our listeners get in touch with you, follow you, explore your work?
Yeah, so you can just search up I'm Her, so the letters IMHER, Women's Wellbeing. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so you can just stalk me, find me. I'm sure, Sarah, you're going to pop it in the notes. Yep, beautiful. And then I kind of give full permission for people to like stalk me. So Jo Goddard, you'll find me on Facebook. Just stalk me. Just come on in. I'm an open book. I'm here to dissolve the taboo conversations with good fun and humor along the way. So
fantastic.
Come on the journey.
Yes, and you're an author as well, so you've written about joy, correct?
I have, yeah. So I wrote a chapter in an anthology book called Embodying Joy, and that's now become a signature mentorship program. So 5 months, and I will lead you back into the full embodied place of joy. But joy isn't, oh, how do I get to the high vibe? Joy is the journey of you. Only come on this journey if you are willing to look at the messiness and even if it triggers the fuck out of you, we're going there because we need to find the lessons and blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Triggers are a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's my signature starting place, because I found a lot of women, if they dove straight into the sensuality and sexuality work, there wasn't a readiness. They got the information, but there wasn't an ability or capacity to move into applying it, or they held it and didn't have the groundedness to then share it with their lovers. So we start at this all-encompassing, what is joy, what is pleasure in my life, before we jump into the more deeper temple. So I'm going to start a temple. I'm announcing it here. It's going to be online, but the Temple of Rebellion, because loving yourself and self-responsibility is the ultimate rebellion.
Oh my God, an exclusive, everyone.
Woohoo!
I do want to scream on top of you. This is amazing. Oh my gosh, honey, I'm so excited for this. More of this in the world, and this is what we're here for. This is what our conversations are about. As I said, this is part one, because we're going to have more of this. We need so much more of you, Jo.
Yeah, sign me up. I'll be here whenever you want me.
Wonderful. I told you to that. That's a legally binding contract.
Yeah. I need an excuse to wear my crown more. So,
Isn't it fun?
It is.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. I will link all of your details in the show notes. Can't wait to get this episode into everybody's ear. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks, gorgeous.